Welcome everybody to our Microsoft sponsored webinar for AESA. My name is Robin Rivnuts and I'm super excited to have the amazing Maggie Ojeda here today as our guest speaker for this topic. So Maggie is currently serving as a high school assistant principal at South Texas ISD. She recently transitioned from supporting educators as a learning resource integration specialist at Region 1 Education Service Center, in which she had the opportunity to grow services to assist our local area in impacting teaching and learning with technology. She has served in public education for 20 years in such roles in the Texas Rio Grande Valley region. And with that, I will kick it over to you, Maggie. Thank you so much for being here today.
Hi, everyone. It's a privilege to be here. Thank you for investing some time. And I say investment because I know right now everything is fast and furious. So I was just sharing with the ladies that I'm coming off of lunch duty. So if you hear a little rumble and tumble, that's because I haven't had lunch. So thank you once again for joining. My name, thank you for the introduction. Also, Miss Robin. My name is Magdalena Ojeda, and as Miss Robin stated, I was formerly at the Educational Service Center in Texas. So just a little bit about Region 1 Education Service Center. So it is a service center that is in the south part of Texas. There are 20 service centers in Texas that serves all of our local education agencies. So I was at the regional center for almost 7 years. And in our role, we support the districts, whether it's private, charter, or public school systems. We are centrally located, like I said, in the south part of South Texas. We're the largest area span service center, all at the bottom tip of Texas, as you can see there. We've had some really interesting things happen in our area. We've had a lot of growth while I was at the service center, and leading up to the days of the pandemic when they first hit. We were able to kind of just deploy different services to help our service center area. So we have over 38, as the statement says here, over 38 school districts, 10 charter systems, and a total of 8 counties. So and as I know, those of y'all that are attending serve in similar roles. You're providing services for large span areas, and so in that area, I can relate to you. I can relate to the role that you've had. Being that you're at a service center, you sometimes may or may not know what resources districts are currently using. So a lot of it has to do with the networking. That is something that I hold very dear personally to myself in building relationships with my districts, building relationships and establishing a network. And so let me move in here. So I'm gonna kind of tell a story of what happened and how we were able to grow that training muscle of Microsoft at Region 1 Education Service Center. And so in the team that I was a part of, it was 2 of us that were instructional technology folks. And in our same department, we had the STEM folks with us. And then we had an e-learning person. So we had a total of 5 individuals, and we had our instructional technology director. And so our director oversaw us. One thing that was really unique about the organizational unit that I was a part of is that we had the autonomy to create. In our particular department, I like to liken it to a petri dish, because with the impact of technology on curriculum instruction and assessment, we needed to be agile enough to look at services, see if they were being effective, remove quickly services, and come up with new services based on the impact and availability of the technology. With the impact of COVID on what happened, it almost amplified what we had been used to doing, which is how quickly can you turn around a quality product or service that will meet the needs of our systems. So and as you know, being the role that you're in, every system functions at a different level of efficiency, at a different level of communication. There may or may not be training systems available or clearly articulated in a school district. So we have to be very careful in how we have conversations in the leadership rooms that we get to be a part of. It all goes back to the relationship building. It goes back to building the network of the district, where they allow you in and let you see behind the curtain to see how things are being handled and how services are being created. So, and given that kind of districts began to ask me, and the other question was, if so, what are the types and how does one attain them? And this came as a result of badging and micro-credentialing. That was one of the things that we found was there is credentialing, but does Microsoft offer credentialing? And if it does, how does Microsoft offer it? And is it like what is the information out there? So that's how pretty much the story began. It began with the need of our districts and listening to the needs of our districts. We in the Rio Grande Valley in South Texas had systems that were exclusively Office 365. We had systems that were exclusively G Suite, or now Google for Workspace. And so then we had some that were hybrid. So that's something based on knowing our customers or knowing our patrons. We knew some background information. So for example, we had a sheet with the districts listed on them, and we had the operating systems of their preference. And we also had with that technical sheet, what operating system was used for which population. For example, we have McAllen ISD that was using Office 365 for teachers. The students also had an account, but they were also using G Suite, which kind of, but the teachers had a MacBook. You see, so that was a hybrid situation. So because we knew what cars they were driving on the information or in the technology world, we could customize services for them. So in some systems, they were wanting credentialing just for one solution. Some were wanting for all. So this kind of also gives a little bit of background. Let me continue. So looking at those questions and considering that background that I'm mentioning to you that we had in place beforehand, when our districts were coming to us asking us about credentialing for Microsoft and the teachers, we also at that point what I did is I started researching and trying to connect some dots. And so what I'm going to do now is I'm going to talk a little bit about each of these and how this kind of played a role in the development of and growing some kind of a training program in the regional service centers. So I started with our ISTE affiliate office, TCEA. So as you know, ISTE does have state affiliate offices. So in Texas, the Lone Star State, we have TCEA. So at TCEA, I had a connection there. I had Miguel Gulen. And so I reached out to Miguel Gulen. I started doing some searches, and I was finding that Mr. Gulen was putting out a lot of information, blog posts and things like that about the Microsoft tools. And so he was even also offering training. So I reached out to him, and Mr. Gulen happened to have had already an existing relationship with Microsoft as a trainer of trainers. And so that was a benefit for us, because that was going to put us in line with what we needed to do as a service center to train our staff. Who was going to get trained and what kind of trainings were available. And by getting these trainings, what were you able to issue out or give? So I began to pick up the information there from Mr. Gulen. The other, if I'm moving over to the right, on Twitter, I was following Miss OneNote at that time, and Mr. Mike Tolfsen, I think I'm saying his name correctly. And so I was following them and also grabbed information off of some of their tweets to kind of help build some knowledge base on how we're going to roll out some type of a service for our learning systems, for our learning community. And then at the bottom, the conferences. With Mr. Gulen, I was able to present at TCEA, and Mr. Gulen introduced me to Miss Robin, which was the gem. That she was like the person that made the greatest impact. Not that Mr. Gulen didn't, so don't tell him, okay, that I said that. He made an impact. So if you know Mr. Gulen, don't tell him because he'll be sad. No, he actually made just an equal impact. But what happened when I met Miss Robin is I was able to connect more dots as to the services that would be available. And I'll talk more about that in a moment. And I did actually get to meet a forms software engineer at ISTE. And so all of these little connections kind of helped to build some kind of a knowledge base for our team. So we knew some of the roles that were by knowing the network in the Microsoft company, we knew who to reach out to for what, which leads me to the next one from my district. So my district started asking me, well, have you heard from Chris Aiken and I was like, I haven't heard of his name. Give me his contact information. So it all fell back on relationships and the ease of which my districts would give me information, and I would also share information. So there was in this relationship with the district, when you're growing something, as you know, if there is almost a vulnerability piece where you're almost saying we're co-constructing a service together for the benefit of your whole system, then it kind of opens up the room to have the conversations of, you know what, I did not know that person in Microsoft. Thank you for sharing that. And so by adding that element, you're able to more easily gather the information so that you can create your own network of who to reach out to as you're building something and growing your training program. So I'm going to stop here and see if you have any questions regarding, you know, the story behind researching and connecting the dots. I don't know if Miss Robin or Miss Renee, is there anything on the chat?
I don't see any questions in the chat window currently, but okay. You're more than welcome anybody to come off mute and ask Maggie any questions that you may have, or you can leverage the chat too, or you can just drop down a GIF and let her know that she's doing an awesome job.
Thank you. I think they're hungry. That's what I think. I think I'm hungry. All right. The next slide is, I called it detangle credentialing. So one of the first obstacles that we were trying to figure out was what type of certifications are for what. When our districts were asking us for credentialing service, we asked them the question right back. Do you need industry certification, or are you looking more for question? We were able to create two different types of conversations to have based on the need of the district. So I'm gonna kind of buy off a little bit here because I know I have people from all over the United States. And so in the state of Texas, we have CTE programs, career technical education programs, and those programs have programs of study. Those programs of study are set up like a pathway. And if you follow this pathway, and if you obtain a certain certification, let's say the MCT from Microsoft, the district gets a point for that student in the state accountability system for ESSA, or for the state accountability system that we have in place. So sometimes we were getting those types of questions. And the program that I'm talking about that was built was not necessarily the industry certification question. Those we would direct them to the CTE folks in our service center. So that's just something to consider as you think about building or as you think on enhancing what you already have, that having a clear pathway of communication to the different type of credentialings may help you. I know for us, it did, because even in with our director, there were times when we had to say, re-articulate that, no, that one is more for CTE industry certification. That's to prepare students and the teacher and the students for certification. This other program, it does something different. This is more for micro-credentialing. And even at one time in the state of Texas, there was a Senate Bill 1839, I believe. I'll need to check the Senate Bill number that was passed in the state of Texas, stating that teachers had to be digitally certified or had to be deemed digitally literate, and so in order to obtain that literacy measure, center for Microsoft. So that was another part of the conversation that we had to point out as we were having service conversations with our districts. So are you seeking industry certification or just simply educator credentialing, whether it's to meet that Senate Bill 1839 or because your teachers are really interested now in micro-credentialing? You know, there was that boom of getting all types of certifications for third parties applications and the main applications that are used in school systems. And so from those is where we extracted the MIE trainer, and the MIE expert or the types of credentialing.
Sorry, I couldn't hear what you said.
Okay, sorry. It was my Apple Watch. So in the MIE, that is what we were actually offering, and that's what we offered, Microsoft Innovator Educator. But in order for us to be able to do that, we had some actual steps that needed to be taken. So the first step that we took was, and this is going to be where I spend the most of my time, we got the service center staff certified as trainers. So there were 5 of us that were trained by TCEA Miguel Gulen, a service that they had already set up for the whole state of Texas. So through Miguel Gulen and a Microsoft site, we were able to sign up and get a training to be hosted at Region 1. So for that, we did have to pay for that one. That was our money investment that we made to get us all certified. With this certification, what it did is it was able to now provide us access to be able to redeem achievement codes inside the Microsoft Educator Center. So I'm gonna move this tab over here so you can see that. So if you notice here, here is the Educator Center. So once we took the course with Mr. Gulen, we ourselves were able to have in our accounts the ability to redeem an achievement code to grab, to actually, I had a transition, remember, from being at the service center. So my ability to actually go and grab a code is not yet visible on this account that I'm showing you, but in the accounts that, in the trainer account, you are able to go and document that you are going to be giving a training and you can get a code. There's actually a different site now. So there's 2 different sites to go to. But when by getting the service center staff certified, that's what you were able to do. You're able to grab those achievement codes and give them to people that are attending your training. So that was a big deal for us that we were able to do that. That was preliminary. That was the very first step. The next thing that we did is we talked about technical setup. So I'm gonna pause here for a moment. If you know our technology department folks, right? you know, our ISOs, our information officers, they really protect us, don't they? Yes, yes, they do. And those of us that work in instructional technology or have worked in instructional technology, we're always trying to push, push, push. Can you open up that? Can you allow us to share links outside of our organization? Can you allow us to, because we're always wanting to collaborate with no barriers, just like we do somewhat in face-to-face world. But we do have, for our own safety, measures that are put in place in each of the organizations. And so in part of the technical setup, what Robin was able to do for our service center is help us to get a set of training accounts. That made a world of a difference for us. We would not have been able to successfully roll out a good product without having some training accounts. Now, that happened to be for us. It may not be for you, your technology department. Maybe you are the technology department. Maybe you have a way where you could create training accounts that are exclusively for training. So by having this, we were able to do a lot more seamless demonstration pieces with the teachers, because being that we're at the service center, as I mentioned earlier, we're all in, some districts are hybrid, some districts are not, some districts are very tight on security and will not allow you to share outside of any domain other than your Microsoft domain for the district. So those are all things that have to be clearly worked out ahead of time. At the service center, by having these accounts, once again, our teachers were able to meet us as if we were all part of one organizational unit. And so that was very, very important in successfully implementing these services for our districts. Now, granted, there was a time or two when the devices were coming in. They would come in with their own laptop device, and the way that it was imaged did not allow for even another domain to log in. So for that, we had laptops, extra laptops available that did not have that restriction on them. So the technical part, as you know, being that you are instructional technology people, technology directors even, you know, those are just things to think about and work out. You may already have done something like this, but for us, that was something we had to work out. And having this in place helped us to continue to grow. So the next bullet, correct content to be able to issue badging. So that ties into the training material that we had access to. There was some training material that Mr. Miguel Gulen shared with us, and then in conversation with Miss Robin, I was able to get the right link to see the training material, some additional training material, so that we were consistent between all the trainers. We had to come into an agreement on what the agenda looked like for the day. This is what we have available from Microsoft Educator Center. And this is what we're proposing. We're covering everything that's in the agenda, and this is how we're rolling it out. So what I really appreciated about the training material that was available was that it allowed for autonomy for us to use a station rotation. So that's more of a pedagogical training approach, where it's not just a sit and get Sage on stage, Maggie talking to 35 teachers all day long. What we always try to do at our service center, and what I always try to do myself, is really demonstrate what a TPACK model looked like. How does it really actually look with students engaged? Really looking into that TIM matrix, that technology integration matrix put out by the university in Florida. How does the collaboration looking like? Are you keeping the teachers actively involved? So the training material, having the training material kind of already prepped for us, and even with the script, helped us to kind of be systemic on how and more streamlined in how we were presenting our content. Now, the part where we were able to add a little bit of a personal flavor was on the how delivery, setting up stations, or pairing teachers up, or doing a scavenger hunt. You know, just some of those those pedagogy methodologies that we use when we train. So that goes with item number 3. On the 4th bullet, after we worked that out, then we added it to our products and services offerings. So at Region 1 Education Service Center, I'm going to go here, kind of break out live. I didn't add a link to this in the material, but at the Educational Service Center, we had a service that was called Megabyte. And if you look here are the districts that were part of the Megabyte services. So we not only offered the Microsoft MIE badging as part of this service, but we also offered it separately. So our districts, if they were part of this partnership, they were able to get that credentialing available to any teacher in their district. That was a big, huge advantage because we used a consortium approach where not only do we provide the Microsoft, but we provide it for hybrid environments. We can provide services on how does technology look integrated, impacting maybe just formative assessments, and we could customize. But our main packages included the credentialing for MIE. So that relates to how, or that ties to how we offered products and services that way. And then after that, we just promoted. We said, okay, hey, you all asked for it. We have it now. You wanted your teachers to get MIE credentialing. We now have that available. Go to our site. We have flyers and things like that we handed out to all of our districts through our email distributions that we had built for our service center. I think we had there is a tool that our communications department would use and kind of do a blast of all of the services that were added to the Megabyte services, and also exclusive ones for on-site district. So those were the steps that we took to grow. So I'm going to pause here because I'm already at the end of my presentation, and I just wanted to see if y'all have any questions for me.
Does anybody have any questions? I'll ask one for you, Maggie.
Okay.
What was the biggest learning from the experience? Or so number one, like what did you maybe have trouble with and that you learned through the experience? And then what do you think the impact has been on the region since Region 1 launched these training services?
So yeah, yes, I think the greatest challenge was that there had not yet been a pathway laid out on how to do this. And I think the greatest challenge was at the very beginning, trying to figure out all the pieces. I think that for me, I would say was the hardest for us to do. What really helped us were these key pieces here that, and maybe I hope that it would help all of you all out there that are looking either to start to build a service product for your districts, your school systems, the connecting of the dots, and where to get the resources and where to begin to build. I think having these 4 different categories of support and bringing them together and how they could blend into a service that you could provide. I think that was the hardest, or the challenge, the greatest challenge. And then the detangling part. There was a lot of confusion at the very beginning of, well, wait, you want credentialing, but do you want your teacher certified to teach students how to become Microsoft certified, or do you want teachers just earning the badging? And so, and the greatest benefit has now been that now that we rolled it out, it's been at the districts, is just the excitement. If you've done micro-credentialing or badging, you know that the teachers love to put the MIE logo on their signature line. I know that seems like something small, but it's actually, they wear it with pride. They wear that badge with pride. The greatest though impact is on instruction. The teachers feel they leave feeling competent. Questions that are asked, and this is one of the questions that I get. There are some teachers that log into the education center and they take those asynchronous opportunities. That's fantastic. But I will say there is a large amount of teachers that still want the brick and mortar face-to-face instruction, learning experience, because there's only so many times you can search for a certain question versus if you are in a learning environment that's in brick and mortar and you're asking those questions, it's a lot more authentic. It's a lot more organic when you're in those learning situations. So I think that has been the greatest takeaway was that the teachers themselves began to build a network for themselves around other teachers and getting other ideas in how they were using the tools. Take, for example, when we would go into the OneNote class notebook section, a teacher would log in and show how they were using that notebook, how they were distributing, how they were getting back. And at the service center, we had a demo, but there's nothing more beautiful, for lack of a better word, more beautiful than to see the actual learning of an actual classroom, of an actual teacher that used the notebook and can show student work. And so that the authenticity of what comes after is the greatest benefit. The students, and let me say this too, the districts that took advantage of credentialing and took advantage of providing this service to the teachers at their discretion, and the teachers that were the go-getters and jumped on board when the pandemic hit, they were ready. They had systems in place already. So those were the ones that were able to, with not as much disruption, of course there was a lot of disruption, but with not as much disruption, were able to implement and continue to teach and learn with the students. It's amazing. There was not as much of an abrupt transition in, and I think that was one of the greatest benefits of having to have had these opportunities beforehand. And so in looking forward and where we're headed, I know, things are looking better and they're trending upward for all of us here in the United States. And it's looking like a better and more beautiful, brighter tomorrow. But one thing that I'm learning now that I'm here at an actual high school is that there's still going to be some elements of unknown, right? But it seems to me like now all of us have become more resilient in whatever role we were in. We have become more resilient. And with the resiliency is going to come the conversational pieces of how can we work with a blended approach of brick and mortar and online. What credentialing will we have? How will credentialing look for a hybrid training environment? Because now you have to consider, and you've been considering the training environments that you all are hosting right now. Out there, I don't know if maybe you all can let me know, are you doing exclusive webinars only? Or are you already looking at providing some brick and mortar face-to-face experiences? That's a question that I wondered about you all out there. And I don't know if maybe I could pause there for a minute and I can get some feedback on that.
Anyone on the call brave enough to share what your professional learning strategy moving forward is? Is it going to be in person, virtual, hybrid, both options? Well, I'll share, Maggie. Eric is going to
Thank you, Robin.
Eric, are you going to?
Yeah,
Oh,
I
thank you.
can share too, but we've got Maria Rorgan is also on the session here. Thanks for all the information, and we're actually calling in from the IT department, and so we support the student information system, and weren't really sure what the specific content was going to be, and so it seems to be more teacher focused, and so we don't specifically support that as much as the whole system, Skyward system. You might be familiar with them probably from in Texas. And so I wanted to know kind of how you were able to get into any type of offering from the agency level to your district. So it's really good information. We present primarily, of course, by Zoom right now. But we are in our scheduling for the next year. We're looking at in-lab, in-person type trainings, but also throwing in that on that remote element too. So if things change and we have to go all remote, we'll be ready to do that.
That's great. Thank you for sharing. I'm glad you're here because you're the gatekeeper for this type of program to be able to be implemented at your system. If you're managing the SIS, then you're working with the Active Directory system as well. And so whenever we were setting this up, I had a lot of conversations with our network specialist, our network administrator, to see how we could facilitate the training portion of it, training the teachers how to use the software to impact that teaching and learning. And so I don't know if you're working with that part, but thank you for sharing, and also for sharing that you're ready to rock and roll either way that it goes. Great.
Yeah, you're welcome. I am curious to know if it has influenced the usage of the Microsoft products in other areas throughout the districts that you support, because you've kind of got the teachers going. Has it kind of opened up other doors for the districts as well?
So that's a good question. If I share anything, it would be more of an anecdotal nature. Just observations that I've seen, and they may even be biased, I'm going to tell you, because I wanted it to work and we wanted it to work. So, but I do see that the districts that implemented some type of credentialing before the pandemic were in a much better position when it happened. Now, in retrospect, of course, there has been a lot more usage because of the circumstances that we fell into. Now, moving forward, I do not think that we will ever we will never really ever go back to the days before March 2020. After March 2020 for us, life was different, and it has become different. And I think moving forward, it will continue to be. But attributing this service and the way that it rolled out and how it grew did help. I know one of our systems, which only has, I want to say they have one high school, one junior high, and one elementary school. So I want to say that they have less than 2,000 students, way less than 2,000 students. They had purchased a one-to-one before in early in the fall of 2019. So they had implemented. They also got their teachers trained, and so the teachers all had the credentialing. The students had the devices. It was already being implemented and rolled out. And so with the circumstances changing in the type of learning environment for students, meaning they were at home learning from home, it did increase the usage. But again, it was due to the circumstances. So, but the hope is moving forward that education has been impacted forever, and I don't see it ever going back ever to just 100% exclusively brick and mortar face-to-face. Is there any other questions out there?
Hey, Maggie, we really appreciate you sharing your story as a service center and being able to take resources that, we've created to be able to replicate and scale all the way down to your individual schools and students that you're changing the lives of every day. We thank you for all the work that you've done. And if there's anybody who has any questions on the call, you're more than welcome to stay on the call. We've got a couple of resources from Microsoft here. We're happy to help answer those, or you can also reach out to us as well. I will put my email here in the chat window for anyone who has any additional questions about growing an MIE program for your region service center. We're happy to assist and help, but thank you so much for the partnership, Maggie. We appreciate you.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. I hope y'all have a wonderful day. And I'm available. Just shoot me an email, tweet at me, and I will tweet right back. Thank you all so much.
Thank you, Maggie. And as I said, or I put in the chat box, I'm recording this session and I'll send it out to all the registrants and also post it on our AESA webinar archives webpage. So if you'd like to share that link, please feel free to do that.
All right, I'm taking a photo before we leave so I can tweet it out. Thank you so much. Y'all have a great one.
Thanks, Maggie.